All right, good morning. We're here on October 9th to do the policy committee. And let's get started.
No, we do not have any.
Okay.
No. We're called the meeting to order. The first one that we have to discuss is policy 146.1, trauma informed approach. I have one thing that I seriously have read and number 3
What page?
on the second page,
Second page. Okay, thank you.
policy number 3.
Mhm.
Curriculum and planned instruction that embed social emotional learning.
Was that from PSBA or was that internally added?
This from PSBA.
Okay. I would like to scratch that out for the time being, because one thing I've learned over the last few days, there is no national standard on social emotional learning. That's a wide open case that anybody can do whatever they want, teach whatever they want. And I think with the, what is it, 12 or 14 DPLs, we could design our own program that's good for us.
That's probably worth a longer conversation, and I'm sure Megan can weigh in with this as well. Elizabeth, I think you brought up that idea in the last meeting. The idea of us constructing our own, as Megan, you pointed out, we would come up with a kind of a scope and sequence, and then we'd have to fall back and find the materials that support that scope and sequence. And from what I've seen of Character Strong in particular, we probably end up using that as the resources to back up our scope and sequence. I don't know that the scope and sequence. Now, to be honest, I'm not a professional in the area of social and emotional learning, nor is anyone else in our district. So we'd have to do some consultation work to get someone whose education and experience is really specifically about that. And we'd end up with a scope and sequence. And again, my sense is that we come up using materials that are essentially Character Strong.
That's why, since we don't know what we're doing, I want to uncheck that box. for
I
now.
agree.
May I suggest another path? May I
Okay,
suggest
sure.
that we table this policy until tonight's
Isn't this one that we've tabled for quite a while?
Well, that's.
I'm not sure, but
I think it
thing
is.
If tonight's, not tonight's, tomorrow night's meeting, the board decides to adopt one of the two social emotional learning, and we've been doing this with Second Step for years now anyway. We'd be coming back and saying, hey, can we change this policy?
Okay,
well,
then let's just put this one on hold and table it for now.
Well,
Okay.
may I?
And
Yeah.
can I,
May- oh,
oh, sorry.
please, no, go ahead.
I was
Go
just going to clarify one thing. You're right that there are no social emotional learning standards, but there are PA career standards that cover resilience. And almost all of the concepts in SEL are in the PA career standards, which we are required to teach. So that's why there's no national SEL standards yet. I believe there probably down the road will be, just to provide clarity, but right now the concepts that are in SEL are in our PA career standards, which we are required to cover.
Okay, what about this compromise? You said a key word I thought was very helpful. Resilience, was that what you said? And you said another word. So why don't we just delete out the controversial non-standard words and use words that are standard that Megan can help us with, instead of that embed resilience and however you want to think about it. I don't want to put you on the spot. But that's why we could table this, and then it'll give her time and your team's time to come up with two other key words that do coordinate with standards that are already out there. I'm sure you'll have come up with some great ideas, but I like the idea of tabling.
I've learned a lot the last 2 days I've been going over to the middle school.
Mhm.
Okay, and I've learned a lot, I've seen a lot. But the word embedded,
That's another action that, yeah.
that's,
Mm-mm. I think the team.
I'm not 100%
Right.
sold on it, but I'm more open to it.
Okay.
So until we get some direction with it, because right now, from what I'm seeing, anybody can go any direction they want. There's no curriculum on it.
Which is, well, that's not exactly true. We do have second step, which is,
Yes, but we're getting rid of that, so we will have none.
so the choice that will be in front of the board on Thursday is to adopt Character Strong or to allow us to repurchase second step.
Mhm.
Okay,
Because we need, I agree with your underlying point is we need a thing, right, a curriculum to do this.
right.
And that's what,
100%, yes.
yeah, and that's what protects, right, the district and, you know, teachers and ensures the board that what
It's
is
covered.
being taught is what was board approved. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? That's that
Absolutely.
protection element that's super important in any curriculum because you don't want people just making up their own thing, right?
Mhm.
That's a dangerous path, totally on the same page about that. Like,
Right.
and that's why, you know, those resources are really important because that's what allows us as administrators to hold everybody accountable to following what was board approved.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you for the
yeah.
clarification, Megan. Well, okay, if we want to table that line and see what administration wants to come up with then,
I'm gonna ask that we table this policy and let administration come up with something on it we can bring. back.
yeah, and
That sounds good.
may I go ahead though and add my comments now? So this isn't something else regarding this, and maybe they could look at this at the same
Sure.
time.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Page 2, delegation of responsibilities. I want it to be the superintendent. And the reason why I feel it should be the superintendent is because that's how all of our other board policies are written. Well, not
Mhm.
all, I'm sorry, that's wrong. I made a mistake. You'll find quite often that our policies say superintendent or designee, because technically the superintendent oversees all of the employees at all times. And if the superintendent so chooses later, you can designate it to whoever you choose. But from a flow chart, and this is such an important policy to me, is that when you look down, you'll see the board directs the superintendent or designee, and you'll see that repeated. So if we could just keep it consistent, the board designates the superintendent. And then it's up to the superintendent to decide whom they so choose.
Would it be acceptable to do something along the lines of the board designates check the superintendent, comma, or?
Oh, yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah, or
Yes.
school counselor.
That's what I meant. You
Right,
can say
that's-
or designee, just like it says otherwise, and then you can do whomever you choose. That'll give you some flexibility and also it might, okay, good. All right, so we got that
Can I ask a
change.
clarifying question about
Sure.
the number 3? Do you want us to, I know you said you want to table it, but do you also want us to draft what that would look like using the PA career language
Mhm.
and bring that to next policy? So you can see both options? Is that what you want?
That's a great idea.
I'd like to see our options and, I'll discuss a bunch of things later on about it that I've learned over the last 2 days.
At the board
Okay,
meeting.
so
the
we'll draft
board
that
Yeah,
for next
okay.
time and then you have
Okay.
options.
Yeah, because I'd prefer, thank you, Chris. I prefer, if that would be lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have to look at link 1. Okay, link 1, believe it's on page 1. Yes, link 1, if you wouldn't mind clicking on that. Link 1, the first sentence.
What is that, 105?
I'm so sorry. Wait, let me go back. We're still in the same policy. Policy 146.1, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if you click on link 1 under definitions, it doesn't matter where you click on the link, just so you click on link 1.
Oh, okay, that one, I see it.
Okay, where's? Oh, it's B1. I'm so sorry. I think I'm on A1. Am I on A1? This is the problem with having, I'm sorry. Let me go back to, please bear with me. Policy committee, open the agenda. Yes, B1. Okay, let me make, I got my notes here. B1, first link. Section 13, maybe I wrote down link 1 and 2 differently. Section 1, trauma informed. I don't know why, I'm so sorry, my notes are not coordinating with should be section 1311-B. And I printed this out. Let me see if there's another link here on the page. Let
So
me check.
trauma-informed approach is defined in that link towards the bottom of the page.
Okay, well, in section 1311-B. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, I'm so sorry, my mistakes.
Did you not make notes on this?
Yes, I did. It's right here. It says B1, policy 146.1.
Under definitions and trauma.
Link 1, I wrote down right there. Okay, let me see what link 2 is. Maybe I got the transposed. I'm so sorry. Authority. Okay, I'm so sorry. It's link 2. I made a mistake on my notes. This is link 2. Okay, link 2, please. It says in here, the first sentence, no later than August 1st, 2010, the committee shall develop a model trauma-informed approach in the plan, blah, 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 blah. So what my question is, since it's stated and it coordinates with this policy, I couldn't find where the committee is anywhere in this policy. And because of that, I just thought we might want to table this one. So that way, I didn't check every single link, all these other policies. I am not going to go through 38 different links here, but somewhere there is probably sometime between in the last 2 pages, between number 1 and 38, it probably states somewhere where this committee definition is and who is on the committee. So I'm asking that we table this one also because of that until we find, I'd appreciate it instead of me, if administration would be so kind as to find the link that's correct, that corresponds to the committee. And then we will then be able to discuss that policy and see what the committee is. So that was my other note on this one.
So Elizabeth, I just want to make sure that I'm clear.
Yeah, I'm looking at,
So I see what you're saying about that in the law, in section 1311B,
right,
it says that the committee shall develop a trauma-informed approach. And so your question is, who is that committee? Who sets it up? Who's on it? That sort of thing.
And because so that link could also link at the end of the sentence, could link to whatever, when you see that 1 through on the very last 2 pages of this policy, you'll see all those different coordinating links, some to state laws, regulations, and some to our own internals. So we just have to make sure that that language is somewhere in our policies, and wherever it may be in our policies, it's also in this particular policy. So link,
I'm getting lost in the number of times you're saying policy. I'm sorry, I'm
Mhm.
not quite following, but what I'm sensing from this 1311B is that the state or PSBA or someone has to develop a model trauma-informed approach plan
mhm,
because it's the model. But we'll certainly look into that and look at the sections above 1311B when they probably have defined
what the committee is. Yeah, whether it's a state committee, I'm assuming it's an internal committee. I'm assuming, or if you have to
We'll-
ask the
we'll look into that.
solicitor.
We'll look
Thank
into
you
that.
so much. So that was the other item I had. So maybe we could chalk those back off and get those clarified. That would be very helpful. And then under policy, the same policy 146, under guidelines. What page is that? Guidelines.
Third page.
Thank you. Under guidelines, it says training, where is it? Oh, this page training.
so it's required training for newly elected appointed school directors.
Included but not limited to. Because we mentioned it somewhere else. Let's see, I wrote down training, add volunteers, parents, guardians, and other community members to serve on the committee and to develop procedures. And that would coordinate with your AR, because in your AR, you're mentioning the volunteers, parents, and guardians, but here we don't mention it. So it does say opportunities in number 5, but it doesn't really say what those opportunities are. So it would be, I think, we have enough people in the community that probably would be interested in being on whatever this,
Okay, so take the, just put training opportunities.
So it says opportunities of all those people to, so it's opportunities to obtain resources or attend training or information sessions.
right, well, how
Right.
do we, how are we doing those opportunities? I'm sorry, maybe that's a better way to do it. And in your AR, you've touched on it, but maybe since you're looking at this again, maybe come up with something that would be a little more definitive. So, that way the public, if they so choose, they'll know what those opportunities and how to make a connection with us. So that's that
So
one.
you're asking for an adjustment to the AR to more closely define what and where these opportunities might exist for
Yeah,
volunteers, parents, and other community
yeah,
members.
yeah, maybe think of it as like John Smith calls you and said, what is the opportunity? And how do I apply, or how do I fill out a form, or what are my opportunities? And there you'll have it right there. Anyone can answer the phone call. Boom, done. Then page four, where's this one? This is one, page 4, I wrote down, the board shall, where appropriate, review and approve a memorandum of understanding or other agreement with each partnering organization or entity. Okay, before the district implements, add text. Okay, find the sentence, the board shall, on page 4. For the board
Kind of in
shall.
the middle of the page, right above the education block.
Yes, thank you so much. If we could consider committee to add the entity before the district implements. So that way, no one will be caught off guard.
Not following.
Okay, so the first sentence, the board shall, where appropriate, review and approve a memorandum of understanding or other agreement with each partnering organization or entity, then add text before the district implements. For the provision of services, et cetera. Because the board's reviewing it and approving it, but it doesn't state when the district, I mean, it's just
Well, I hear what you're saying, but at the
Okay.
same time, these partnering organizations kind of revolve over time, and it's not a static sort of a thing. And so I think
Okay.
adding the before language would kind of box us in because we may not be able to, right? So if an organization
Okay.
changes and we've already implemented it, then that kind of leaves us in a weird spot because
Then we gotta change it all over again.
Okay, all right, so no, that's helpful. I didn't realize that. Okay, so, well, then we have the data collection and plan review. What page is that? Data collection and plan review. Page 5, 4th line, data collection and plan review. I think one thing moving forward, our district could do better at is the board by law is supposed to always continuously evaluate information. And we can't evaluate information if we don't have any information to evaluate. So please consider this. Data collection plan review. The district shall review and revise the trauma-informed approach plan and then include this text. The school board shall be given quarterly reports on data collection and effectiveness of all implemented programs. So instead of taking the last box, I would put it up to the second box, periodically or quarterly or because
So,
it sort of leaves it open to whenever that is.
sure, but the reality of it is that we give that report to you at the end of the year when we talk about, so you received one in June, a report on all of these things as part of our student services plan. And so some of this is just how often we gather that information.
Right.
Because we don't gather it quarterly. So there will be 3 quarters when we say, well, we don't really have anything to say yet because we haven't gathered any of the data.
Gathering
don't-
it quarterly is not a good screenshot of how it's working. You gotta give it a little. more
Quarterly
time.
and a final summary annually, or if you feel, folks, if you feel, I'm not gonna sit there and hammer it, I won't. If you feel you've got reasons, I'm adaptable.
Well, we get the student service plan annually.
Okay, well then what about,
So-
okay, sorry.
We could mark it annually and as part of
Sure.
the district services
Yep.
plan.
Okay, well,
That
so
makes
then,
sense.
And I
okay.
think too, Elizabeth, like internally, we review it often.
Sure.
But
Right.
I think what this is saying is how often does it come to the board?
Well, see, it doesn't
Which-
say that though. It says the district shall review.
But the board is the district.
Right.
Well,
I'm gonna say, let's mark it both annually and as part of the district services plan.
so it's
Makes sense.
covered.
That way it's covered both ways.
And I would prefer if the word district is scratched out and it still say the full board.
That, we're the ones that get that report.
I know, but if, just for clarification, a lot of people don't understand what the word district can mean at any particular time. It's just a text change. It's going from the word district to the full board.
So there's a couple of different things that are mixed in that line because it says,
Yes.
review and revise. And, I would suggest that it's not the board's job to revise the plan. It's the board's job to look at the
review it.
data and say, hey, we.
No,
can
you're
see-
absolutely correct. That's a good,
Yeah.
that's a good point. All right, so how about this? The district shall revise the trauma informed approach plan. And the district and the full school board shall review.
How
Just
about
transpose.
something like the district shall review and revise the trauma-informed approach plan and provide
To the board.
a report to the board. So just on the
Yeah,
end of that
that's
line,
perfect.
and provide a report to the board annually as part of the district's student services.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see, do I have include text? Okay, that's perfect. Okay, that one is tabled, correct? We're recommending a table for that, so
Yeah.
they can fine tune. Okay, thank you, Chair.
All right. Let's move on to policy 218, terroristic threats. This is one that I see the changes are already made.
Yeah.
We added including the KCSD safety and security team
Yep, I went through and added that everywhere. So it seemed to be
Yeah.
appropriate.
to all them different policies we were talking about.
Well, the other ones, I think, I did it for a number of different ones, but I know there's two that we're talking about in the meeting next week.
Coming up,
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
talk about that in the agenda thing,
right?
so we can.
So let's move,
Oh, I have a comment, sir.
go ahead, Elizabeth.
No, I got pages on. Sorry, I didn't mean to use
Well,
that
you
now.
got 2 pages and I got 1 page.
Okay. And I didn't even get through all of them yet. It's too many. Anyways, number 2, I believe it's under includes policy 2, estrogenic. I believe it's in page 2, last paragraph. Or is it? Oh, no, I'm so sorry. It's page 2, first paragraph.
Okay,
As stated, the superintendent or designee shall notify the parent guardian, da, 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 da. And at some point in that text, this is something the full board never gets a full report on. Given, of course, there's privacy issues and things like that, but still, we can be updated, whether it's annually or quarterly, that we are also, the full board is also shall be notified, such as within 24 hours, or if you feel that that's too constrictive, say that the full board shall be notified within 48 hours.
Brandon, is that part of your?
Act 44, that's.
Yeah, it's
data.
your act.
I mean, it gives you an overall total of those kind of events. but-
yeah,
Right.
when we get the report of the Act 44, we get everything.
Right, but I have people who contact me and say, Elizabeth, have you heard what just happened at Keystone? And I say, nope. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but I will say that it's more often than not that people come to me from the public and inform me of what's going on in these regards. And that's probably not the best way to run the school.
I don't know how that happens because there's info that gets released before we ever hear about it.
Yes, it
But I
does.
understand that.
So
the
there's a glitch
secure-
here.
The SROs, the security team, the administration, can't be on the computer going, hey, this is happening
Yeah.
right now. They gotta be dealing with the situation. So we're gonna get it after the fact. If
That's fine.
somebody does call you about it, all you have to do is say, I'll look into it and get back to you.
Well, right, well,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is there's a breakdown of communication at some point, and at some point, there's gotta be a better way of communication to the board. So, not that of course.
Well,
I-
Dr. Redmond's been letting us know of things that happen.
Right, but it's not written in the policy. So what I'm saying is, thank you for doing that, and you're doing the right thing. But unless it's written in the policy, you have a superintendent who prefers to not share that information.
Well, then
Okay.
shouldn't you just hold that superintendent accountable at that time rather than,
Yeah.
so
If
when
I have a
when I'm-
problem, I'll bring it up. That's pretty obvious.
So my hesitation is that if we write really constrictive policies that basically control the actions of administration or superintendent, as you pointed out, it may come to a point where the superintendent isn't able to for a variety of reasons. Other
And it
things that are
hinders
going
what's
on.
happening.
What about within a reasonable amount of time? I'm just saying,
Well, reasonable is pretty subjective.
I don't
I don't
wanna
know.
hear about every argument that happens.
no, I'm talking about when someone gets beat up at school or there are certain things that are a different level, okay? And I think we understand what those levels
Mhm.
are.
I think you gotta be careful with that, because you have
Okay.
to, I mean,
Yes.
there's different criteria for every event. So a kid getting punched in the face is not a situation necessarily where they may be arrested, or it rises to the level of a serious,
Right.
other than a suspension. And so like, if you're
Okay.
asking to be informed of any suspension that goes about, I mean, that's a communication sort of nightmare that I don't know that you even really want to be in. the
Yeah, because
weeds in.
that could
No, I
be
understand that.
leaked out or
Yeah.
whatever,
Right.
and it shouldn't be.
Whereas the more serious things, there's no doubt, and since I've been here, you've
It's gonna
always
get
been involved
released.
with a communication as soon as a serious event occurs.
You're
and
absolutely
so
correct.
I think that those are the ones that cause dismay to the public, because they're like, oh my gosh, the school went into lockdown. What
Yeah.
happened? Well, then if we go into lockdown and it's a missed push of a button or something like that, Dr. Redmond or somebody could send out a note that says,
Mhm.
we went in lockdown, but a student pushed a button, or we had a 911 call. Somebody fell off a roof and we had to have people respond. That way you can dispel those kind of things. I think
Well-
those are
And
the
I-
important
yeah,
events.
And I think a layer of that is social media and kids with access to,
That's
so
what I'm
like
saying.
things get out before
Right.
there's a chance, like Chris is
We-
saying, for administrators, after they're done dealing with the situation, to say,
We
even to
had an
these two.
incident, what was it, 6, 7 weeks ago? And it hit social media. I contacted Dr. Redmond and said, hey, and he had the principal put something out right away. And then I asked for permission, can I stomp this
Yeah.
right now? And as soon as I put it on, it stopped.
So
And that worked good.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
that's just a reality of 2024 and how to,
Yeah, I nipped it,
Well,
we
we
nipped it in the bud before it went
Yeah.
crazy.
And that's the way it's supposed to work. I don't
Yes.
think. So your role as policy governance
Mhm.
is not having you
We're not here, so we
involved
can't adjust to
in.
the situation.
No, we don't- I
those
don't
sorts
wanna-
of things. And so if you, as Chris pointed out, if you have a community member who's asking questions, and you don't have the answer to them, you have my number.
Okay.
And I respond
No,
pretty quickly.
And
No,
it
you do.
worked excellent.
It did.
The-
Okay.
The way we did it worked.
Okay, if you don't think the board should be notified of, I mean, I still feel very strongly though, I mean, I will go along with, if you feel it's too cumbersome or whatever, I'll adapt and I'll move forward. But I'm just saying that unless it's actually written into a school board policy, how the employees are going to report it to the full board, it just leaves it open for interpretation if a superintendent chooses to or not. And Dr. Redmond is doing the correct thing, but working on text versus hope,
Mhm.
I always fall back on text.
I think part of that too falls back on the superintendent's expectations, right? So if you're
Sure.
working on a job description for a superintendent or assistant superintendent, like that should be an expectation. And
That's where it gets
that's where you
adjusted here.
hold them accountable, because
Okay,
I would never in my life hold an administrative position like that, and I know Dr. Edmonds the same way, would never not tell you of something that could bring public dismay. Because you would be in the line of fire by hearing all those messages. If we would do such a thing, I would consider that negligence. And so that's, you know what I mean?
Well, the same token as what you're saying. I don't sit on my computer all day and all night to watch for anything like that, so I'm gonna get the delayed reaction anyway.
oh, absolutely. Okay,
And
here.
When we hear of something and we have a question about it,
Mhm.
all we gotta do is call and ask.
Okay, well,
And
this,
it is probably, I've never read the superintendent contract, but it's probably in there that there's
Yes.
expectations.
Yeah,
My
there
job,
is.
it's really clear in there. I keep you informed of things that are going on in the district. So that's where that
You can
communication
come back and get them.
piece needs to
Right.
be, and not in every single policy.
okay, no, fair enough. I appreciate that. That's a
All
very
right.
good reason. Okay,
Let's move on from that one.
Is that one good? Nothing?
Yeah,
Read
Yeah,
the first read?
I like the statement that the procedures followed by the KCSD Safety and Security Plan and the
Yes.
law enforcement.
That
That
is-
was,
important addition.
yeah,
Very
that's
good.
very important.
So number 3.
Okay. Policy number 3, policy 323.
This is-
Tobacco and the vaping products.
This is the one that went to first read and was pushed back to make the adjustment that we made under, it's on page 2, authority.
Yes,
We switched things around to include the possession or use of tobacco products by district employees
Or-
while they're in a school building. And then we added the second part, period, and that ended the second line prohibits the use on.
by district employees
district
and
employees.
contracted personnel.
So basically, we're saying nobody can have it in the building.
Right.
And we're not saying that employees can't have it in their car.
Right.
May I?
Everybody good with that one?
Sorry, Chair.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Okay, page 2, we're sort of back to, under reporting, annual school safety and security instances reports. Where it says the superintendent shall annually by, and that's the law, report
Yeah.
to blah, blah. Sure, but also in there to have it in writing, unless you folks know where it's in writing in some other policy, that, that same report shall be shared with the full board.
I think
also-
that comes in on the Act
Act
44
Yeah, it's
report.
part of the
That's
Act
the Act
44.
44.
Right.
Okay, so that's why I didn't check that other 10 link.
Yeah,
Maybe
we
that's what
see
the 10
that
link
and
is.
that's in the. in the
Okay, just want to make
links.
sure, just making sure. Thank you.
And the Act 44 report's quite daunting. It's pretty
is.
large.
It is.
But it's,
But I just
that's
wanna
the
make-
required structure of it. in
Yep.
the state.
But I appreciate those, that we all know that. Okay.
Okay, number 4, policy 800 records management. We brought this back from first read to make an adjustment on it. Elizabeth, you were really inquisitive about this and wanted it brought back.
Okay, so what we're seeing right now is the original policy, correct?
So what we did, I looked at you sent that email. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
helped
that did one of
I
clarify.
don't know what, I don't know what that email said.
So that it said basically that if we have on page 2, let's see if I have this right.
3 records committee.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So
Yeah.
the records committee. Well, I think above that where we said that we're designating the business manager as the records coordinator who also serve as a chairperson of the records management committee. We had on the top of page 2 what the committee looks like lined out. So.
Right, I
agree
remember that.
Right, so if we have someone who's in charge of a committee, then we need to kind of define that committee, and I think that's what we did underneath that records management committee of having those, the folks that are, the records officer, superintendent, board secretary, solicitor, IT, and a business manager are all part of that committee.
And also a board member.
If you'd like, I mean,
And
it's your
yes,
policy, if you want to.
And a board member and an outside consultant, checkbox 8 and 9, and I'll explain why. I did not know this until right before the meeting, and again, apologies that when this was brought up at last meeting, I just don't even, it was a mistake on my part. But anyways, moving forward. Checkbox 8 and 9, and this is the reason why. This original policy was vetted through the solicitor at that time when this was developed. And it was also done with our other solicitor. Oh, what's her name? There's another solicitor the school board manager has used quite often too. Debbie, it doesn't matter.
Dottie.
Dottie,
Hollinger.
thank you. She was the one that was instrumental in this. So you had two sets of legal eyes looking at this. And they both, that's why you need box 8 checked and box 9 checked. And that outside consultant could be someone like Dottie or some other entity, whatever other entity you may need at that point, depending on what it is. And if the records management committee meeting, because they have to go through every single email, I mean, every single email. If you want to keep it annually, that's fine, but periodically gives you the option that either way, you're going to be doing it annually, okay? But periodically means if you all of a sudden find that you are inundated with so much material that it would be better for the committee to meet earlier, at least you have that option.
Could this be something that instead of developing a whole new committee?
Well, they already had a committee. What they did was they took it away by mistake.
Okay,
So technically, they already had a committee in place because this policy hasn't been changed since Dottie and the solicitor developed this. So whoever, may have to go back to whenever, 2 years ago, before Joni came on, and then move from there.
I can agree with a board member and outside consultant added to it, but the big thing is who is going to be the whole committee? Why can't that job, and I think we have too many committees already.
So it wouldn't be a standing board committee.
No.
It would just be a
Right.
board member participate. So it's not like we're doing right now. This is a board
Okay.
standing committee. It would just be, a board member would be invited to sit in when the committee meets.
Mhm.
Okay, then that's cool.
Okay.
Let's add a board member and an outside consultant then.
Mhm.
Can I
And-
ask, when you said they have to go through every email, what does that mean? Because I've never heard
Oh,
that you go through.
I'm not saying how they're supposed to do it, but at some point, you have the right, depending on that structure in the table. When you want to dump, or I shouldn't say dump, I'm so sorry. When you want to clean
Mm,
the emails,
mm,
there's a statute of limitations.
Right.
And but there are some emails that you may come across that may be more sensitive than others. That the statute of limitations for that particular law makes you have to keep that particular email outside of your regular cleaning process. So that's when you get to the point where, you can't just take every email, well, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm so
Well,
sorry.
that's what I just, because when you said that, I was like, wait a minute, like, you're gonna go through every email in the system as a committee, and then.
I'm not saying as a committee, but I'm saying right now it was just set up as just the board manager. I'm sorry, the finance business manager. I'm so
Right.
sorry. That's a way. It's impossible for the business manager if they had to go through every email. They need a committee to help. So that's why the Dottie and the solicitor set it up that way. And then the box under page 4. Yeah, the box wasn't checked. The district requires that all manual records be assessed annually and all vital. That is another one that I believe the solicitor put in there. So that box should be checked under manual records.
Which box?
Page 4, the bottom, under manual records, it's in bold. The box wasn't checked.
So we don't right now have a system of transposing all of our paper records into an electronic record system. And that's what that, so
Mhm.
this is new language that they put in. So if we check that box, that means that requires us to have extra personnel and
Convert
extra
everything.
equipment to convert everything to an electronic system
Right.
that we don't have right now. So that's a significant extra expenditure of time and money to put that system into place.
Okay, well, what about this? Checking the box and then putting in text. So it states that we're working on it and it will happen in the future, because eventually we're going all digital, right? And
Well, ostensibly, yes, but that's checking that box at any point means that we're going to have to go back and take all the paper records, that some of the records we have to keep in perpetuity and start, again, it's a significant
okay,
expenditure of time
understood.
and resources.
Okay, okay. Um,
Under the email records, I
What
guess
page?
that's
Yep.
page 5.
Okay,
Down at the bottom, it says email records may be maintained as an electronic record
Mhm.
or be printed and maintained as a manual.
mhm.
Shouldn't we check that so that we're covered either way? It keeps the message content, the sender and the recipient and the date.
so in my mind, it's kind of covered in that, the second sort of line underneath email records. Shall be retained and disposed of in accordance with the district records management plan.
Okay,
So it already says that we're keeping that as per the records management plan.
okay. Which is,
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but I mean,
Sure.
basically, this one says we could print everything off and keep things in a
Right.
physical file, or we can keep them electronically. Right now, we don't print everything off and keep them in file, we
Right.
keep them electronically.
okay,
And the last item is, this was the addition that we sort of talked about, but then you said it went into the ARs. So either this policy or the following policy, you want to keep it in the ARs, that's fine, but administrative regulations can be changed at any time by administration. If it's in a board policy, it can't be changed unless the board votes on it. So either in, however you feel it should be, whether it's in this policy or the following 800 policy, that it states in there that, however you worded it in the ARs, if you want, that all recorded public meetings shall not be erased or deleted without the majority of the board approving.
I thought we already established that.
If that's in, but it's in the ARs. ARs are administrative regulations and the board has no control over administrative regulations, only
Okay.
administration. So let's say hypothetically, Superintendent B wants to delete a YouTube recording or wherever the recording, the visual recording is. Technically, we would have every right to outside of the board. And we do now have on YouTube, from 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It is true. If you look, you'll see that there are YouTube recordings that are not there. And I'm not saying anyone did it on purpose. I'm just saying, unless it's in the board policy, whether it's this one or the next one, wherever
It
you
would
folks.
have to go under the next one because that's considered a public record.
Okay,
The first one we're doing records management has to do with internal records.
okay.
So are we good to move past records management and move
With the
that
changes so noted,
and move that?
the
forward?
committee, yeah, I think
Move
so.
to first
Yeah,
read.
first read, and you did write down first read on the, hang-
323,
huh?
Is that what it was?
323, tobacco and vaping.
Yeah,
So I think 218.2, 323, and now 800.
yes, I forgot to say first read, I'm sorry about that.
No, no worries. Thank you.
So records management can go back to first read. Good,
Yes, but thank you very much. for the
Okay.
Conversation.
now we will move on to the 801 public records. This is where it needs to state that the YouTube videos, I gotta go back through it now. I agree with the statements put on about the anonymous request for records. If somebody wants to know, we should know who it is.
Absolutely.
I agree with everything so far. I think that it should be something in here that says that the public video records will be maintained and recordings will be maintained
So that,
indefinitely.
I hear what you're saying on that. I don't think it fits within the policy, just based on how the policy is structured. It doesn't talk about any records in particular. I do think it needs to sit in the AR. And in terms of your comment, Elizabeth, about they can be changed, according to board policy and state law, the board has the option to direct the superintendent to adjust the AR according to what the board wishes.
But most board members don't know that and they're never trained in that. That's just.
Well, I don't know what to say about that.
I
That's-
know,
There's
I
already
know.
policy about that. And so
I
the
know.
structure of this policy doesn't, it doesn't get into the specifics of the records.
What's that AR say? Can you bring it up real quick?
I don't think it sits in there. It's not.
I'm not seeing it.
It's in it. It doesn't sit in that one. There's another one that's.
That's what I'm saying. It's a very, that's why I'm just saying, just to, for clear, because when the public goes to look at our board policies, I just, since we all agree, I don't think there's ever been any dissension about not keeping public video recordings.
Oh, it is. I'm sorry. It is down. It's just not, there's policy 800. There's an AR for 800. It's just not, you have to change the title so it's listed correctly. So there is an AR 800.
And on the first page of this, it says a record, under public record, it says a record including a financial record that is not protected by defined privilege, da, 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 da.
Mhm.
We could put a record including a financial record or electronic, which would cover the videos and everything.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sure there's a place to put it in here that won't be intrusive, but stipulates. So. And not only recorded, but,
Well, here, if you look under record,
I did,
it
film or
says
sound. I
it's
see it.
including a document, paper, letter, map, book, tape, photograph, film, sound recording. Now, it's not a tape, but we could just add the word electronic video.
Electronic recording.
Recording of
Yes.
public meetings. And so they
Yes.
also can't be edited. Unedited is the very key word, unedited.
And that would just be a quick addition onto where it says record. That way it clears all that up.
Yep, just saying, like I said, it includes the word unedited.
Would you, Chris, write down exactly what you wanted to say and where you wanted to say it, and then we'll get
Yeah.
that put in there.
Thank you so much.
Under record, Christine, are you with me? It's on the very first page.
Okay.
It says it describes what records we're talking about, including paper, letter, map, book, tape, photograph, film, or sound recording. I would say film or video.
You think electronic recording
Electronic recording
is
would be
probably better
fine.
than film, because film is, I mean, technically it's a,
1980.
right,
Right, that's antique.
right, a cellulose with a.
That's the old
recording on
8mm
there. We're
films.
not, yeah.
Okay, we'll do at the end of the, you can stuff in there unedited electronic recordings. How's that sound?
Unaltered, I think is the legal term.
Unaltered, you're absolutely correct.
Unaltered,
Yep.
okay.
You're absolutely correct. Good one. Good catch. We have 10 minutes before it's 11 o'clock.
Well, I'm not gonna say nothing, Elizabeth.
Just saying.
Other than that, on that policy, I'm good with everything.
No, it's been, yes, I truly believe that that was the one.
So I'm sorry for interrupting, but just for the sake of time, so with those changes, move to first read.
Yeah, let's do the changes and move that to first.
Thank you. So this next set is cyclical review.
Right,
And so there's no changes on any of them except for policy 335.
Yeah.
And 335 should have been changed some time ago. It wasn't for who knows why. But basically, I'm recommending that we strip off the 3 attachments.
okay, let me get to them.
That's number 4.
Attached families first coronavirus, yes. The roster, yes, and the Spanish, yes. I'm okay with that.
That's good. Mhm.
So I kind of bounced through this last night
Yes, good.
and everything under the silical review, I didn't have any problem with.
Okay. So, and again, we don't, on those, we don't have to approve them in the board meeting because we're not making these substantial changes to the policy.
Right, they're just staying where they
They're
are.
staying with- So we won't have to move those forward. My interpretation for 335, we're not changing the policy, we're just changing the attachment. So again, I don't think it requires board approval.
Right, I don't think so either.
The only thing I ask is that when these go back on board docs, it just says, I mean, you know, that it's reviewed on October 20.
yeah,
Yep,
that's what
that's the
she's
only
doing.
thing I think we need to do, right? Okay, good.
Okay, we're gonna move on to policy 252, the dating violence.
Mhm. I had a question, Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay, if you click on the form, and I'm gonna say this for all the forms. The reason for, I'm just asking, just so we understand, what's the reason for having another form on top of the other form? I mean, why
What are you
have an
talking about?
informal report and then also have another form for a formal report?
It's the same report, so that you can use either.
But why? Why have 2 forms? It's just more, why have 2 forms?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is you can use either form to make the report. So we want to make it as accessible as possible. So if you want to report on the 252 report form, or I'm not sure what other form you're referring to.
I think there's a second. There might be a second one because it's moving from guidance counselor to a school counselor.
It seems like, well, you'll see.
So just if you let me know which form you're talking about, then I can address
Yeah,
that more
because I don't
directly.
understand what you're talking about either.
Okay,
I think one of them is the form that's filled out by the person that's putting the complaint for the Title IX
Right, and the
violation
other
out
one's
there.
the really.
The
one
other
that
one's the
receives it.
Title IX coordinator's response to the incident.
thank you.
And
Okay.
that's why there has to be 2.
Okay.
Because formally, there has to be a response by the Title IX coordinator.
Okay, so then can we say on this form that this is part 1 of 2, somehow, so there's coordinating, it just seems so. I mean, if I was in the public and I saw, or if I was the teacher, or if I was a student and I was like, how do I know that this is the form I fill out versus the other form? I just, right now, I
Well,
think you
the-
could do a much better
Yeah, I
job
think
of
you could name one of the
clarification.
forms, the Title IX coordinator response form, and the other one, the. event.
could
That
just
would be,
put-
there you go,
And just make. two
Easy
different
You
peasy.
could put
forms.
one as complaint form and one as response.
Yeah.
perfect, that's
So,
beautiful,
All right, we'll make that change.
beautiful.
Then can we move that one forward?
Yeah,
Well, where I
far as
wrote
I'm
down, where
concerned.
will this form be posted? With, we already took
Just-
care of that. Who received this form? Yeah, who receives this form?
Anybody.
anybody
So
can file it.
Okay.
They can
Yeah.
take it to anybody, and that's it. That's kind of in there too.
So how do you know that if someone, and I'm just being devil's advocate here,
Okay.
okay? How do you know if John Smith filled out the form and handed it to employee Bob Tom?
On the form itself, it asks for who's putting in the form and who's receiving it. That's part of the form itself.
Okay, but there's no chance the form won't get to you?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm saying is if John Smith, the employee, takes the form from the student, let's say, what are the checks and balances, the oversight to make sure that that individual then it gets to you?
Our,
The coordinator, so that if the form gets filled out, the flow has to go through either the student Title IX coordinator or the adult Title IX
So
coordinator.
you have policies,
yeah,
your internal
well, I
we
think
policies
do
the
covering
training
that.
form
about, when you get these
Okay,
reports,
just
here's
wanna
here's
make
what you
sure.
do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there was, I would just want to hear,
Nope.
you
yep.
know, because I know you folks do a hard, you're very serious
Yeah, as
about
soon
this
as those are
stuff.
filled out, there's a whole line of events that leads it to that coordinator so they can review it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
So we're okay to move that one forward?
Yes,
with the-
sir.
With the changes that Randy outlined.
Yes.
Chris, thank you.
Okay, so
Yes.
D2.
That's that one on its own.
So on educator misconduct, it's pretty close to the same. There's some pronoun changes that are in there. And then there was a change in the language coming from the state to call it sex-based discrimination.
Yes.
And that's the only changes on those.
I had one quick question, Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, there's legal confidentiality issues and all that, but how does the board, how does a board get the report? Because, you know, on page 2, again, it says duty to report. How can the school board evaluate what's going on if we don't have a copy of that report?
So you get, from me, you'll hear recommendations about whether or not to remove an employee, but
Sure.
underneath the discipline that happens before that doesn't come to the board.
Sure, I understand that, but how do we know how many of these reports are going to the Department of Education? So what I'm trying to say is, we get, in the long term, the idea is we want these continually to go down.
So you're saying you'd like to know how many reports of this there
And,
are?
well, of what case, because again, how can the board have any input or be aware or know that there may be more of an issue, or maybe we should put more?
That falls back into my job is to keep you apprised of what's going on in the school district. It
Okay,
shouldn't be written as an individual thing into every policy.
okay, I understand that. I will say this, it just seems like, all right, let me put it a different way. There seems to be a lack of full board knowledge on all board issues at all times. And I'm,
So can you
So-
tell me a little, so,
Tell us about it.
yeah, so there's, on one hand, I hear what you're saying. On the other hand, it's not your job to get into everything that's going on every day with the constant
That's
ebb and flow,
micromanaging.
right?
of course,
Because my job is to keep you informed of the things that will affect the overall board picture or what's going on in the public and all that sort of thing. I don't think it's appropriate for me to let you know on the small issue things that either can't or won't come to you. So if there are things that are happening that are not being communicated to you, that are on those kind of grander scale things, that's when you have a conversation with me in exec session saying, hey, I'm not hearing stuff about what's going on. And we can look at the individual circumstances of that. And I can say, I didn't because, or oops, I'm sorry, I didn't.
sure.
Or, you know, so that's where that kind of thing needs to get taken care of. I don't think it makes sense to put it, again, we'll have to go through every policy and create a superintendent will create a report and superintendent will
that-
create a report. And then
That's
if you do that in every
micromanaging.
policy, then all I'm doing is writing up a
Of course.
daily activity report for the school district to go to the board. And that is way into the micromanagement.
No, of course, that's not what I meant, but if it's going to the Department of Education, that means that the school board member can, and the public can, go on their website and see the end of the year results.
And
So
you'll-
we can still
And you'll
do
hear
that.
about it Before that happens. That's my job, is to make sure you're informed.
Okay, all right. Okay,
So let's move, policy 317.1, educator misconduct to first read.
Thank you.
Number 3, under, section D, policy 336, personal necessity leave.
There's some
Not
legal
exceed.
changes that were made on that, and you can see our recommendations are checked in there. And rather than specifying the number of days, we wanted to say it's whatever their CBA says.
What's it, what do they say?
Are they all different?
They're a little bit different in each
Yeah,
one.
each
are they?
one.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, that's something to note for the next time, huh?
Now, this is the immediate supervisor,
Mhm.
so more or less just the principal or
Right.
whoever's in charge of you.
Well, wouldn't you prefer that it's the superintendent?
nope,
Okay. Okay,
Cause then he's micromanaging.
Yep.
right. I know, I understand. It's just that way he'll know who's leaving and who's not. But okay.
Okay, it says the requirement for advance notice can be waived or may be waived
Yep.
in qualifying circumstances
Yep.
directed by you or the designee.
yep. So if some emergency comes up and they're not able to do the normal, 2 or 3 or whatever number of days in advance, and they
Right.
say, hey, this emergency got, like, my kid broke his arm, so I need
Right.
to do, then I need to be able to waive that.
Okay. And we're crossing out. the
So if you-
whole
If you
back
look at
section.
bereavement leave, if we check the first part, there's
Second
that
part
saying
gets
option
deleted.
says if
Mhm.
choosing this option, delete the stuff that comes after.
Okay. Yeah, I say we can move that to
May I?
first read. Yeah. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Years ago, the former HR director, the personnel reports that come up every month for the school board never included whether that was compensated, uncompensated, et cetera, et cetera. So we requested, and from this day forward, when you see that report every month for under personnel, say compensated or non-compensated, that's because we verbally requested him to do that, okay?
Okay.
Now, to ensure that that continues, and it could be taken out at any time, but I think it was really important because this is the reason why we requested the HR director at that time to put it in the personnel report, is because there was some dissension in the public. They did not understand why these people were leaving and going somewhere. I mean, are they still getting paid? Are they still getting all their benefits? And so that was a communication device to the public. So I'd like for the community to make sure that that stays in there. And this, I really believe, should be in the policy. That in the monthly personnel report that's posted on board docs, that information remains on that report. And we can't do that. And we might end up going back the other direction again. So I would like to see it somehow placed as a little line.
But if you're saying it may go back, and so I'm not sure about the necessity of that. I hear what you're saying about the public having questions. But if we're following our collective bargaining agreements about leaves and all that sort of thing, I think we need to stand on that.
Well, so
And-
it's just
And
transparency. And so
there's
the,
also confidentiality when you're talking bereavement and all that stuff.
no, we don't say why just if you look at board docs now and you see the personnel report and you'll see Tom Smith uncompensated leave. Or you'll see Tom Smith compensated leave. That couple little words we had, the board requested the previous HR director add into the personnel, and it seems like that whole conversation in the public just went away immediately. I'm just letting you know this.
Okay, no,
Okay.
I'm hearing you. I have some questions about legality and
Mhm.
confidentiality. If that's board practice, then I think we leave it alone. I don't think
If
it
it's
makes
work,
sense
if
to
it's,
put it into the
It's
if
policy.
it's not,
Yeah.
if it's working, it's not broke, you don't have to fix it.
Right, well, I just wanted to make you all aware of that. So if you
Thank
don't
you.
want it in the policy, I'm fine with that.
Okay,
But that's why it's there currently in the board docs that way.
all right, so we move policy 336, personal necessity leave to first read.
I have a question, sorry.
You had your question.
I'm sorry,
What
but
is it?
this is a question that, has come up. And I realize that due to contracts, it's probably extremely specific, I hope not, but, in the past, this question has come up, and then I find a year or two later, the same question comes up. So I'm just letting you know this, that it's a repeat scenario. When someone willingly takes a leave of absence, their health insurance, sometimes it stays and sometimes it does not stay. And I don't understand the logistics of that. But there were some circumstances where their health insurance couldn't continue because of X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to make you aware that conversation seems to come up every other year or so. Oh, well, if this person's been gone for a year, are we still paying his health insurance? So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Yeah, and so whether or not we do is complicated and mixed up with FMLA and all that sort of thing. So we can't do a universal, we do
No.
or we don't, because of there's
Mhm.
considerable nuance in how these long-term leaves play out.
But I just wanted to make you aware of that, okay?
Okay,
Now can it be moved to first read?
I like so, yes.
Okay.
I just want, he's newish,
I
okay?
know.
And why repeat the same conversation over and over? and over
I
again?
understand. Okay, policy 339, uncompensated leave.
Chris, did you want this added or not? Under guidelines, or anybody, I should say, I'm so sorry, anybody. Under guidelines, page, 2-3. Where is it? Where, transfer to and from to the law enforcement agency that has jurisdiction over the school's property. Did you also want that to
Hold on, where
include?
are you at?
Yeah, this is an uncompensated leave.
No, I thought we took that one to first read.
Oh, I was back in the
Yeah, all
last
right.
one.
Oh, you're still on 330, we're on 339, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
We just moved to policy 339.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to jump ahead. My mistake.
so the only, this is just some updates in language from PSBA. And then our recommendation is that we get notification from the person coming back from a leave of absence to let us know 30 days before that leave of absence, if they're going to come back. And if they don't come back when they're supposed to, we'll consider that job abandonment and sever our contract with them. Or
Right.
agreement or whatever.
Is that the tightest that we can do legally? So sometimes you get strung along forever. I'm sorry, that's wrong. That's wrong. Bad English. But is there a way, or do you want to talk to the solicitor? Is there a way to tighten that up? So,
What do you mean by tighten up?
like you were
says
just
it.
saying.
Under the commitment of the employee on page 2.
Mm-hmm,
The employee granted uncompensated leave of absence shall inform the board of the employee's intentions within 30 days of the scheduled return date. So that's simply a yes, I'm coming back, no, I'm not. If notification is not received within that 30 days, so prior to that 30 days,
mm-hmm.
that could be assumed as the employee terminated their contract.
Is that as tight as you can get it?
What do you mean by
think?
tight?
That, so an employee can't say, well, I need more time, I need more time, I need more time.
Then they'd have to
And
talk
reinstate it,
about an
reinstate it, and
extension.
reinstate it, or is that something that completely out of your control?
So there is provisions in there to extend if
Yes.
necessary, but it needs to be, so extensions for a specified period shall be considered upon proper application. That's written into the policy.
Sure,
So it's kind of a, I'm not sure what you would consider being tightened up by that.
Yeah,
But I
if
know
they
f-
need more time, they have to file a report with him to get more.
Mhm.
That's like asking
so
for an
but can you
extension.
deny it? Do you have the legal ability?
Sure.
Is this policy strong enough so you could deny it if you wanted
Mhm.
to?
It says shall be considered. It doesn't say that I have to give.
Okay,
Right.
okay, I just want to make sure that you're, okay, good, because, thank you.
Okay, is that it on that one? I would like to move
If I could,
Mhm.
let me see if that's in here. Yeah, so this isn't checked on here yet, but I think I would like it to be checked. Where it says special consideration will be given to emergencies. I would like to have that flexibility.
Which one is?
So
it,
this
Chuck?
is on the bottom of page.
Oh,
or
yeah.
Top of page
Type
2.
Mhm.
It's not checked yet, but I would like it to be checked. Special consideration will be given to emergencies for uncompensated leave. And again, it's one of those things where I don't have any leave yet, but there's this thing going on in my life that I need to take care of.
If it's an emergency, it's
If
an
it's an
emergency.
absolute emergency, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
If it's just
absolutely.
a, hey, it's an emergency, I run to go to a birthday party, something like that, no.
That is not an emergency.
Right.
Okay, so, so then with that change of checking that box, we can move that forward to first read.
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
You
let's
okay?
move policy 339 with that change, Christine. To first read. Policy 351, controlled substance abuse.
So Elizabeth, Chris and I talked a little bit about this. If this is in reference to employees, and if there is an employee engaged in the misuse of a controlled substance,
Uh-huh.
that goes to our local law enforcement. It does not go to our SROs or our school folks. That's why it's not in here, because this is an employee thing.
Didn't know
very
that.
different.
Did not know
Mhm.
that. Good, good, good. There was one thing, this is the 35, I just want to make sure. All school-related and sponsored activities.
What
It
page are
says,
you
it,
on?
I didn't write that down, so sorry. Language such as all school-related sponsors.
Would our SROs be notified of that though? Simply for the fact that that would give them an opportunity to watch for it.
We have had SROs that have been notified of events that occurred in public,
Okay,
but they don't, I mean, other than the fact of just knowing it, it all depends on the level of the infraction,
Right.
you know what I mean? So, but I've had a couple already that notified me that something occurred.
What about
Right.
this? Would you mind asking them if they want to or not and getting back to us if we should add it?
I don't know that they would want to solicit that because
Okay, I'm just
just-
its option. Okay.
Because in those cases, I think them at least understanding it is one thing, but having the neutral party be in control of it is
right.
better for them in a litigious way. You know, so they're not liable for any.
I don't think if any of our SROs saw anything, that they're gonna close their eye and turn.
Okay.
around.
No, yeah,
They're
absolutely.
not gonna do
Just like
that.
the situation you'll hear about in the executive.
Okay. Any questions on policy 351? Move it to first read.
Yeah, it covers related. Yes, very good.
And the ARs are just about, I have to make sure that there's, we're a drug free workplace notification. Put all over the 371 AR1 is if you have a reasonable suspicion, there's a form to fill out.
And that was my question about the form. Would it be possible, if it's appropriate, okay, and I can explain why in a minute, that there's a disclaimer always on the bottom of form that it shall stay in the employee's file during the entire employment with the Keystone Central School District?
Not if it's just reasonable suspicion.
Okay.
Only when things are proven can we
Right.
put it in.
Oh, no,
there.
not reasonable,
You
but I'm
can't
saying,
do anything with reasonable
Yeah,
suspicion.
we can't.
no, not reasonable, but the other one, when it comes up, once they have been, it stays in their file for the continuum of their employment.
Okay, we good on all three of them?
Okay, so which one are we on right now?
So that was
AR.
that was the two ARs.
Yes, the
So-
two ARs.
So
Do
then
they
we're
have to go to first read?
No, ARs don't have
I
to.
didn't think so. Okay. So we're
Oh, wait,
going to
just-
move forward to number 8.
Well, wait, I'm on the 35. I wrote a note here. This is the AR. And I believe it wasn't in here.
You can discuss that with him because the board doesn't have anything to do with that.
Well,
But go ahead, bring it up.
okay.
And this is on which AR?
I wrote down a note, 351-AR-0.
Okay.
I believe the language is not in here. See, that's why I hate it when I can't. All school-related and sponsored activities, like just the same wording that you had in the policy. I don't believe I read it in this.
You mean about in the building versus on grounds.
Yeah, so you had written that it was, the information was typed in the policy, but then I didn't find it typed in here. And I don't know if you needed that or not.
No, because I think the policy is stronger than the AR.
Okay, just want to make
and the
sure. All right,
policy
not a big
covers
issue.
that.
I just don't want us ever to be caught that saying that it's not in there.
Well, an AR versus policy, ARs are
Sure,
under a
okay.
policy.
All right,
Okay, going forward to number 8, policy 803, the school calendar. Dr. Redmond and I had quite a discussion on this. And I'm okay with the changes that we have on it.
So again, just as a reminder, this is the, coming from the change in the state law last year
mhm,
that allowed the calendar to be set on 180 student days or
900.
900 hours for elementary, 990 hours for secondary. So we prefer the 900 hours than 900 or 990 hours because it
Good.
gives us some flexibility around
Mhm.
calendar that I think is going to help both our students and our staff, as well as our community with our school calendar coming up.
absolutely. I'm happy to see that. And also, if we ever go to someday, not us, maybe 4-day or whatever. That I did notice this. Can we add I'd like to hear your opinion. Add, what is the definition of instruction? If we could add the definition of what instruction is,
That's defined elsewhere in state law.
that's what I'm saying. Could we add that definition here? And I'll explain in a minute. I mean,
I believe that is probably in one of the parenthesized categories down there. Instruction could be anything from gym class to English to
well, that's why.
anything that is learned
Mhm.
would be covered under instruction.
Well, that's why I wrote in my notes here when I was reading this. I'll just read it to you, just please. At the beginning of the policy, create a definition of instruction. Ask the solicitor for recommendations and options so the board can ensure that instruction complies with Pennsylvania Department of Education's definitions such as the action, practice, or profession of teaching. In other words, ensure all hours of classroom time is actual educational moments. Having an adult in the room shall not qualify. And,
So instruction is defined by statute, and my preference is to not try to create something that's outside of statute.
oh, no, that's
because
what I'm saying. That's why I wrote in here, check with Pennsylvania Department of Education. And so it's worded. Because when, I think this might be one of those gray areas. 900 hours of instruction. What does the word instruction mean? And I'm saying this because,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
okay,
But how we can count hours, whether we can count hours, that's all set up in, I'm trying to find it in here. It's defined in the statute.
right. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's a chronic problem around the country. We may have classrooms on any day in any school building that you can't even get a substitute in there. So to me, that's not instructional time if just an adult is standing in the room supervising the kids. All right, we just lost an hour or a block of instruction time. And that should be not counted in my mind as the 900 hours of instruction time.
Well, I will say this, I would hope that that doesn't occur only because, and I know that there's probably instances that it maybe does, but theoretically, all teachers are supposed to have substitute plans available. So if an adult does come into that room, there should be an instructional activity located in those plans. So they should, at all schools, the expectation is that teachers have plans that if there's an emergency and they just don't show up that
Sure.
day, there's like, these are things that kids should work on. Or if I'm gonna be out for 3 days, these are the things that kids should work on. Because technically PD defines it as instructional time as the time during the school day when students participate in activities and
Mhm.
instructions that are part of the school programs. And so technically that substitute, they would define that as instructional time, because if there is even a worksheet that's attached
Sure,
and a gym teacher goes in and fills in for a math teacher and the math teacher hands them that worksheet, it's PDE would define that. as
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
We adapt to what we're given. I get
Yeah,
that, but,
I just wanted you to know that aspect of it. So,
okay.
One question I did have on this, Dr. Redmond, the 450 hours of instruction for half-day kindergarten program.
We don't have any half-day kindergarten. They're
We
all,
don't.
they're all full day.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking. Okay,
So how do you feel about just putting, just so everyone understands what instruction, 900 hours of instruction means? And just adding that definition to it, or you can even put a link to the legislation.
I'm sure it's in there somewhere. I just haven't gone through all the links. We can make sure that that link is in there.
That would be
yes,
lovely.
there is a link in there. I read it, but I don't remember what
I,
number it is.
it's convoluted, I know.
So I'm gonna say, let's pass this on for first read.
With the definition of instruction with PDE's link or not?
I could put just either find the parenthesis and add it there, or you could add per state definitions.
Well, what do you folks want to do? Just so there's some, so it's just so we all have,
There's a lot of reading there for us to add, find that link.
I understand that, that's why,
Okay, so
that's why
Dr.
these take
Redmond,
so
will
long.
you or Christine find the link pertains to that and just add it to it? Are you good with that?
I am, yes.
Dr. Redmond?
So, I mean, it said, so in the policy under authority, it says right there, this may include as appropriate activities qualifying as, I think Randy pointed this out, as instructional days or hours under the direction of a certified school employee for fulfilling the minimum or required days or hours of instruction under law, regulations, and state guidance. So it says that we're following the law about what instruction means, and it's in one of those links.
Right.
I think what you're asking for to have it
Okay.
linked in there, it's in there already.
Okay, fair enough. If you feel that that text is, that's fine. I get it. That's very good.
Yeah.
Instruction under law.
Okay, let's move 803, volume 3, 2024 to first read. Next one's 803 AR, the school calendar.
Are we gonna have a time limit on this meeting? Chair?
Well, we're only have 2 more things to do.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
So there's just some guidance on this, and so we're in the middle of this process right now, actually, creating the calendar for next year. So this just says that we're gonna work with school staff, we're gonna involve some parents and guardians in the process and to develop the calendar. And we have to take all these things into account.
So
I'm
this
okay
is-
with that.
This is 803 volume.
This is the
Nothing to
AR.
Vote on
No,
that.
no. Okay, let me just, I'm so sorry.
That's just informational.
All right, just a minute. So we're on number 8 right now, correct?
Number
Number
9.
Number 9, okay. So the school calendar, 803. I have a comment. Is it okay?
You're the one that wants to get out of here.
Well, no, it's not that I want to get out of here. It's just that this is what policy committee, I mean, if
Well, we
we're-
can't change that one. That is an AR.
no, the 803.
Yes, that's what we're talking about. You have the AR for 803.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So what's your,
There, we can't change that, but
Okay. School calendar. All right, 803. At the beginning, here, I'll read my notes to you. At the beginning of the policy, create a different, no, that's from that one. Okay. Recommended hours of board instruction. Nope, that's from that one. This, okay, school calendar. I'm just have to wing it here. Under delegation. Okay, here it is. Under delegation of responsibilities.
are you talking about the policy or the AR?
The policy.
We just talked about that.
The school calendar one?
Yes, we just finished talking about that.
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. Okay, delegation of responsibilities. Okay, it's the AR then. Okay, sorry. 803 AR. In preparation of the own kind of consideration, superintendent, consult with the school board, school staff, perennial superintendent annual report, school count. Oh, okay. Would this be too constraining again? What we've found over the years is that all of a sudden the school board shows up, there's the calendar, approve it. It would be nice if there was some sort of time frame in there, so at least the school board could look at the calendar. If they have any questions, it won't be the 11th hour again.
So you'll get it in the work session in November for you to examine and look at and give us feedback, and then you can vote on it in the
In
second
December.
meeting in November.
So that would be for the calendar for
25.
For the school.
January,
The school.
No. That, so.
the
so-
following August.
So we're talking about school calendar, not board calendar.
Right. So we're gonna, it'll come to us in November or December.
November, it'll come to you the first
Okay.
meeting in November for the work session. You'll have time to talk about it, get feedback. You'll see it the week, you'll see it the Monday before, so you can come up with any
Sure.
questions you have during the work session. That's the time to work on it, bring up feedback, ideas that you have, and then make any adjustments that are needed in the meeting, and then you have the voting session the week after.
So then the calendar that we'd be discussing in November is the calendar that actually starts in August.
Correct.
That's lovely. I don't believe it's ever, that's great news. That's
And then
great
in
news.
terms of the board calendar, I have been including that in my weekly memos for
Yes,
several
yes,
weeks
yeah,
now
that
for
was-
feedback on that.
Yep. Okay, so you're gonna work with that's parents and guardians. That's huge. That's
Yep, So we're
huge.
starting with the staff, and then the next step will be to invite some parents and guardians to look at our proposal.
And I'm just to keep this in the back of your mind, something we've wanted to discuss for a long time, but there's always a different priority out there that shows up. I only ask this as a board member, single board member, that at some point when you feel it's effective, whether or not the parents and guardians, when you start talking about the calendar, if they want to start the teenagers at a later time, so they get more sleep or something. So that's something just to put it out there. It's something we've always wanted to talk about. We've never had time.
Actually, we do talk about that quite a bit, and
Oh.
unfortunately, we can't just follow super complicated.
That's what,
transportation and all
yes,
that sort of thing.
yes.
So it's something that we've been talking about, I
Yeah.
don't know, for 3 or 4 months now.
Oh, easily.
We've been talking about that, trying to figure out if there's a more effective way to do it, a better way to do it, better for kids, but under all the constraints that we have for hours and transportation and all the other things that push on us. So I'm well aware of the research about teenagers
know
and
you are.
cycles and all
Yep.
that sort of thing. Unfortunately, there's a reality about the way our society works and how sports schedules are set up and what parents want. And so there's a lot of conflicting
There's
things.
so much to that puzzle.
It's messy.
Yeah.
And so even there's a lot about our school system that doesn't follow along with the best research we have about how people learn, how people's cycles, daily cycles, all that sort of thing. I wish it could be different, but the constraints that we have right now don't really allow for the flexibility that I would like to see in terms of when we start school and when we end school.
Okay, just something on the back of your mind is that's one thing, was it two athletic directors ago,
Mhm.
and it sort of coordinates with this, is that PIAA, if I got the acronym correct,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that way, yeah.
they are controlling our ability to fully teach these kids.
That
So,
might be a little bit of an overstatement, but
Well,
they
you
they
see
do
what I-
have a significant influence on the schedule.
yeah.
yeah.
So that's in the conversation
come.
for another day.
More to come, yeah.
Okay,
All right,
we're
thank
moving
you so
that
much
on.
for working on this.
Okay, next one, number 10, policy 815.
big-
Accept,
The big change on this one was the broader definition of computer.
yes,
So that was a big change that came from PD on that one. And then you can see down below that we've checked what we're considering to be inappropriate.
should we also put, video games or videos on there?
It's a little bit broad because we
Yeah.
use videos in a lot of the
Yeah.
instruction that we do.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't
Okay.
block off all videos. We use segments of YouTube, but again, it's filtered for these kind of
Could you
specific
put
contents. inside of it.
videos of contain any of the above?
Well, but it's,
It's already kind of built in there.
Okay.
It's
yeah.
the subject area. So
Yeah.
All
the
right,
format isn't as important as the subject material.
okay.
This is one I did write another note on, sorry. I believe you folks and PSB have done the best they can with this situation that we're under. I think it would be worth every penny. I don't know, Chris, how you feel about it, but I would like our solicitor to review this and then compare it to other policies that are already adopted that are out there. And maybe this is too wordy. Maybe we can cut down. Maybe we should be more specific on one particular thing, but I would feel, because this is such a, to me, a critical topic. That, what, go ahead.
I understand what you're saying, but look on the bottom. This is through the state CIPA and the federal CIPA. And all they did was added some clarity and some wordings and put these school computers and all in it. So I don't know, state and federal says this is what you gotta do.
Right,
So I think we're covered with that. It may be a little long, but I think in this instance, because it's dealing with child pornography and whatnot, it has to be.
oh, no, we want that in there. I'm just saying,
Okay.
that's why I'm saying, because this is such critical information that, well, here, let me word it another way. All right, let's say you have a student that is sort of crossing the line here, and then you find out that, well, our policy, even though we said this policy, I want the policy as tight as possible. Okay, to cover any possible, within reason, anything possible. That's why I'm thinking the solicitor, I would feel more comfortable. It has nothing to do with the professionalism or the skill set sitting here or anywhere in this building.
Well,
It's just that
under,
when it comes down to court and court cases, and if we need to go to a certain step, I want to make sure that it's tight enough that the gray areas.
So
under harmful for minors, it stipulates that under a federal law and under a state law. So you can't go by just your opinion, my opinion, it's whatever the law is.
Well, I understand that, but there's very particular things that this district may or has included that's very specific to something that they feel is important, that might be in a gray area that they want to tighten up. It's up to you folks, okay? You know what I'm saying, right?
from my perspective, this was created through a pretty significant set of
Okay.
legal checks and balances before it ever came to us.
Okay,
I agree with that.
all right, that's what I want to hear. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, let's move that policy. 815, volume 4, 2023 to first read. And
815.1, I request that we withdraw this policy because I was just in a seminar yesterday that I want to look at 815.1 again before I bring it to the committee or the committee brings it to the board. So I'm asking if we can withdraw this
Yes.
from consideration at this point.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, and I agree because, in fact, that's exactly what I wrote down right here. Thank you. This is something, especially since the guy who just won the Nobel Peace Prize the other day, he brought up some really credible things that I haven't even thought about. So thank you. This is a tricky wick. This is a tricky wick. They need it for education, but well, never mind. No, enough said. Enough said.
So just so you know, I'm not coming down on the side of banning AI because that doesn't
I'm not
make
either.
sense.
I'm not
But-
either.
So yeah, just let me work on this one. I'll bring it back to the next policy committee.
That would be great.
yeah, it has a lot to it.
It's ever evolving.
Okay, any more questions or anything, or
I do.
yes, Elizabeth?
Yes, in the future, please, 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 please. Not as many policies per committee meeting, so we can try to balance it by an hour. And and then also list on there. I feel confident that you folks know what are the priorities, okay? Just put a dash after the policy name and say priority.
So this
Please.
is, if you look at the
We've been
PNNs that are
discussing.
sent out,
Mhm.
then it establishes on there if it's mandatory or if it's recommended. So I encourage you to look at the PNNs because that'll help you understand where the policy is changing and what sort of level of priority it is. Chris and I have been talking about how to kind of maintain the length of the meetings, and what we have talked about is having 5 new policies that are coming out of PNNs per meeting,
Okay,
no more than 10 cyclical review policies,
okay,
and then other stuff that comes up. And so that's how we set this one too.
Right.
And then I think, Christine, if I'm not mistaken, we only have one more round of cyclical reviews and then we'll be done
Yeah.
with the whole set.
I think,
So the
it's-
next meeting we'll have those, and then after that, the cyclical review won't be on for a couple of years.
right,
So five
we'll
more
be
cyclical
finally done
resets.
with it.
Well, for now.
Well, then
For
we're
the
going to
quick.
touch those others, the vending machine, we have naming rights, we have all these
Well,
other
see,
policies that
now-
keep being put on hold.
They were put on hold, but now with the silical reviews
No, and I
done,
agree, that's
we'll
why I
have
haven't said a
some
word.
time to talk about them and we can add one or two every month and
Mhm.
slowly work through all that.
Okay.
So that'll be January, right? Because we
Yes.
have a November meeting, which when we'll finish up the cyclical reviews. We don't have any committee meetings in December, I don't think. And then so we'll start it in January.
I've often wondered if, because like happened last year, should we have policy meetings through the summer?
It's up to
So
you.
that we don't get in a boom, we got all PSBA changed all this stuff. And we gotta get caught up on like the August 1st
Oh,
ordeal.
that was a nightmare.
So I recommend that that you send an email to the whole board about, the thing that I've been including
Right,
with the calendars for the board and committee meetings and make the recommendations. And then we can talk about that as a board in November when we set the other
cause
calendar.
that way if PSBA changes something in the middle of summer.
We're ready to go.
We're on board.
And with the understanding too, that people can zoom in, I have no problem, I don't want the whole administration to all of a sudden drop, and then it coordinates also with the vacations, and okay? Flexibility, I have no
And
problem.
that makes it, I think that's really the tough part, because I want my administrators in July to not be around.
That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
So I would love to skip July for that reason,
Mhm.
because we need to take a break.
No, I understand that.
So,
When
we
does
can talk
that,
more about that.
Yeah.
when do those revisions from PSB usually, do you usually have to have them done by August?
No, not necessarily. There's just once in a while that I say, hey, you need to have
Emergency.
this right.
Okay,
Normally, it's kind of as you can get to them. The mandatory, and that's just why we did the mandatory ones first, because there's something that happened in legislation that says, hey, you have to have this in place by such and such a date, or
Right.
you have to have this in place. So we start off with the mandatory ones and work. And
well,
the
as long as
PNNs
we put all these mandatory ones first like we're doing, then we might be all right.
Yeah, I think we'll be all right. And the PNNs come out 4 or 5 times a year.
Okay,
And as you've seen from this, since you've been on, sometimes the PNNs will have 3 policies, sometimes they'll have 12 policies.
right.
And
We just weed through what we can.
Yep.
Okay, I had one request.
Yeah,
Okay, besides all the ones we've been putting off, I can't find anything that, the word delegate for our next policy committee meeting, that some policy, I can't find it. But we discussed the definition of what a delegate is and the responsibilities of a delegate. I
That-
think it's for you.
so this is, might be in Robert's rules, but we can look at that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, just so it is in Robert's rules, but it's not in our policies.
Doesn't need to be, because we say we follow Robert's rules. So some of those definitional things will sit in Robert's rules. And we have other things about who gets to establish who's on what committee. So we say that the president does, but when the president's not in place, can the vice president who's standing in, it's not addressed specifically in our policy. So we go back to Robert's rules on that one. And so
Right.
that's where, and that's already established in policy. If we don't have it set, then we have this backup document of Robert's rules. I don't know that we want to reproduce all of Robert's rules in our policy.
No,
Right.
not that, but I think the word delegate is a critical one. Okay,
okay.
thank you. Wonderful. You
Let's-
guys have done a great job.
Let's
Appreciate
adjourn
it.
this.
Adjourn at 11:40.
11:40.
Sign
Look at
up.
that Security agenda.